We had actually what was kind of weird about the whole thing. We put an album out, and like any genre that has a massive day. I mean, everyone you talk about the Pistols and that the punk thing. There's only like 2 or 3 bands, and the rock thing there was us and Bon Jovi. Then there's all these pale imitations, and you have in every genre. You had it with boy bands. You had like NSYNC and then Backstreet Boys and then really awful stuff. You had 2 great bands. I mean, they were really cool. And then you had just nasty stuff. We didn't want to get lumped in with all those other bands that came after us. And that was the thing, we felt that we were leaders, and we are leaders. So that didn't really affect us. We had to change a little bit because of what happened, The 90s come, everyone was so sick of kind of like big hair bands and kind of really kind of banal lyrics and everything. So they moved into the grunge thing, which was a really breath of fresh air, actually. But we never felt part of the thing that was threatening that anyway. We still felt we had something really special. So we carried on. We never went away. We never split up. We never kind of timidly retreated. We actually done the opposite. We were King Kong, even if people stopped coming to our shows for a while. We got back on, we stuck at it, and it started kicking in again later on. So we'd never really been affected by it that much because we had our thing. It's our sound, and we're not embarrassed about it.
Pretty much, you get 2 or 3 minutes with each band, and half the time, even if you try and get to the stage, you get snagged for autographs or photos by everybody, because they've got other bands have got their relatives backstage and they want to meet you too. It's if you want a bit of peace and quiet, you go into your caravan and you don't come out. But then you've got to do the press tent. You got to go in and do all that kind of stuff. It's very hard.
You try. I mean, we got like 2 minutes of ZZ Top. We saw last time, and
we got snagged by Steel Panther, and they wouldn't let us go. And that was, halfway to the stage. And by the time we'd finished with those guys, we just retreated back to the caravan. So it was a bit mad, It really is difficult. When you've got your own... We'll be able to watch Heart on the tour. That's great, And knowing that they're going to be there for 50 shows, you can catch a couple of songs one night and the third and fourth song the night after. You can watch a set over a period of 2 or 3 weeks if you need to. But when it's festivals, it's, especially if you're headlining, the press that you end up having to do because you're the biggest band on that day is more than most of the other bands anyway. So you do what you can. You do what you can. You sneak up there, watch 2 or 3 numbers of somebody, and then you got to kind of go get ready. Yeah, of course. They're not necessarily the same kind of music as us. So rock evolves. You listen to the Killers, you listen to the Kings of Leon. They're for what they are, they're very popular. They're very good at what they do, and they're just few and far between the opportunities to find a band that you can go, wow, I really dig these guys, like My Chemical Romance,
Muse.
Yeah, you listen to them, but there you are. I'm struggling to think of a 5th band. I really like The Feeling, but they're more of a pop rock band than a rock band, but I still think they're a fantastic band. You end up listening to anything that you can just latch onto. I started listening to the Scissor Sisters because they sound like Elton John when I was buying Elton John records in 1973, But yeah, the Muse stuff's great. I saw them performing at the Grammys, I think it was, one of the kind of award shows, and they were just superb. I saw them in Dublin about a year ago, and they were just amazing. They were fantastic. And Kings of Leon, I shall see them later on this year, just before we head out. They're headlining Slane, and Thin Lizzy are opening, and Vivian is playing in Thin Lizzy at the moment. He's moonlighting. And there's a recession, he needs the money. And, so there's just less opportunities to catch great bands because they don't get the chance to become great bands. You think about it, after the Foo Fighters, who've been around for 17 years or so now, and you still think of those as like young boys. It's you're mining again. You're like having to dig them out with a spade. Where's all the great rock bands? And there's just not that many of them around, and it's sad they don't get the opportunities. If you've seen the Photograph video once, you've seen it 100 times because MTV played it every hour for 5 years. Now the only way you really get to see a band is to type their name into YouTube. Which is cool because you get to see it when you want rather than waiting for it to come on telly. But there's something magical about watching something when you know the rest of the world's watching too. It's like why songs sound better on the radio than if you play them on your iPod, because there's 100,000 other people sharing this moment with you. There's an energy to it that you can't explain or touch, but it's there. And that's sadly not around for the new bands anymore, I don't think. It's a great question because sooner or later the Stones are going to stop. McCartney's going to stop. And I'm thinking anybody else around where we go net, U2. There's a 15-year age difference between U2 and the Stones and McCartney. And so after U2, you've got Bon Jovi, you've got maybe us that can step up to that particular plate, Iron Maiden, God knows, even Duran Duran might, because they're still playing. Because these people infiltrated DNA back in the 80s because you were exposed to them every time you turned the telly on. We saw Simon Le Bon sat on the end of a pointy boat. We saw U2, their big hats and their big hair and stuff, and you saw us in the round and all this kind of stuff, and Bon Jovi flying around on wires. You remember them because you saw it all the time. But I don't know who's going to step up. There are big artists in other fields like Maroon 5 and Rob Thomas and even Jimmy Buffett and people like that that can sell out a stadium. Springsteen, it'll be another one that's in that top layer, but sooner or later, it's like a cliff. It just falls off and everybody's down at the bottom. And there's no way for them to get up to the top.